that's against the rules. And it just, on the surface, looks to me like an absolute, just a money-making deal. Mostly for the company that's providing the system. I mean, they want a 60-40 split, and they come in and set the thing up and go back to the house and wait for the check. Public is the one that suffers that. I don't know of that being a particular problem up there, but especially since they put the signage up here a year or so ago. Came in and put a lot of signage there to accommodate the school zone. Seems to me that if there had been a problem there, that took care of it. So that's my concerns with it, and so those reasons, I don't think I'd be in favor of it. I don't want it to kind of image that we put forward as a city.
I can address a couple of those if you need, Mayor.
I'm sorry?
This is Cam. I can address a couple of those issues if you need me to.
By all means.
Yeah.
Okay, so the litigation that we have is one agency in Ohio, and we've been doing this for more than 10 years. And the issue that we're in litigation over is the agency was enforcing a construction zone on the interstate. They can do that in Ohio. It's not just school zones. So the construction company completed the construction on the interstate. However, they didn't let the police department know that they had completed construction. They didn't take any of the barrels or any of the signs down. So the agency was still enforcing it as a construction zone speed limit. And we were processing citations because we were none the wiser either. Once we found out, of course, we changed it. And, of course, there was a class action lawsuit from several people that received citations after the construction ended. But anybody that drove through there would think that it was a construction zone, that the speed limit was still reduced. So that's the only litigation we've had in 10 years. As far as vacationers, and I know that, it's seasonal when they come and visit the park and visit Tallulah Falls, primarily during the summer, I would imagine, but I'm sure there's some in the spring and the fall. But obviously this thing doesn't run except when school is in session, which is usually not during the summer. And the speed study that we did, I was a law enforcement officer for 15 years in Georgia. I spent the majority of my career in a traffic enforcement unit, and I'm a crash reconstructionist, so I worked all the serious injury and fatal crashes, usually as a result of speed or DUI. So I understand the concern of being considered a speed trap. But what's kind of turned into, quote unquote, a speed trap in all over the country, not just in Georgia, is any location where a lot of citations are issued. It doesn't take into account that a lot of people are speeding. So we did a speed study between February 24th and February 28th, just during the school zone times, which the way Georgia law reads for this particular school zone enforcement being automated is that it can run an hour before school starts, during school, and then an hour as it ends. So during the flashing lights in the morning, we can enforce the lower speed limit, which is 45. While school is still in session, we can enforce the speed limit at 55. And then as the lights flash in the afternoon, again, it switches to 45. So we have the cameras programmed to know when those lights are flashing and when they're not, and change the speed limit accordingly. So the speed study that we did was based on any vehicle going at least 10 miles an hour over the speed limit. So it was 11 miles an hour and above. And during the 5 days that we did the study, there were 807 people that came through that school zone that were speeding. And as we typically see with most school zones, it's usually when the lights are flashing in the morning and in the afternoon when those violations are the highest. And during the day, it's really not that big of an issue. So if you have that speed study that we did, and you should have a copy of it, About 12% of the people that came through between 7:15 and 8:15 in the morning were speeding. Almost 12% in the afternoon between 2:45 and 4 p.m. in the afternoon. But during the day, there was 0.24% of the people that came through that school zone during the day when the school zone lights weren't flashing that were speeding. And that's typically what we see. People just seem to ignore when the flashing lights are flashing, which is the most critical point in a school zone for people to be aware and slow down, because there may be school buses coming through, there may be kids walking to school. I know your school is a little bit different, but there's still employees turning in and out of the school, coming to work, coming out of work. And that's what we're trying to do, is protect those people as they come and go to work, and the kids as they come and go to school. Did that address most of your concerns?
Some of them, I just know that it's real hard to live down a reputation for being a place to come get a ticket. Most people don't take all the details into consideration. They just know that when they come to Tallulah Falls, the odds are they're gonna go home with a ticket. And I still stand by the statement that I could see it being right for abuse. I don't know how much of that y'all have had to address over time, but it was brought to my attention. In fact, I know firsthand of a case, it's been some years ago, where they tried this a very similar setup over on the coastal area of South Carolina. And I'll be honest with you, it went over like a lead balloon. Wasn't but just a few weeks before that thing was put on the shelf and kept there, because it just, people were calling in the Chamber of Commerce, the Tourist Bureau, and anybody they could think of, because they felt like it was a entrapment type situation to a large degree. I'm sure attorneys can get up and argue that point, but it seems that way to me. We've already got a camera on every corner, and Big Brother's keeping a close eye on all of us, and we're going to add to it a electronic generated ticket in your mailbox when you get home from vacation. It doesn't seem like an image that I care to give a go-ahead to when we're trying to create tourism in Raven County, in the mountains. And somebody has an experience like that, they'll think twice about not coming back rather than coming back. So that's my biggest concern here is how much positive are we doing versus how much negative.
Well, that's one of our biggest concerns as well, is public perception. Because you're exactly right. If people think that this is a speed trap, which, like I said, the definition of speed trap is pretty loose. It's anywhere where a lot of citations are issued, regardless of the speed. In the jurisdiction I worked in, we had a stretch of interstate that at the time was 55 miles an hour from Atlanta until well into the next county. And we were labeled as a speed trap because we went out and enforced the speed limit, and we didn't issue citations until they were doing at least 20 miles an hour over the speed limit. So we gave them a 20-mile-an-hour buffer, but we wrote a lot of citations because people came out of Atlanta that were, going 75 or more. I'm not sure how that qualified us as a speed trap, but, that's just the way the public perception is, especially with social media the way it is. So we take a huge effort, because I came from the Highway Safety Office in Georgia. My boss, the owner of Blue Line Solutions, Mark Hutchinson, also worked for the Highway Safety Office in Georgia and Tennessee. So we understand that you can't just go out and do enforcement. You've got to do some education along with that, which is why, I'm sure everybody on this WebEx or in the room has heard of Click It or Ticket or Operation Zero Tolerance in Georgia. Why? Because the Highway Safety Office spends a lot of money doing ads and doing campaigns before they do actual seatbelt enforcement and DUI enforcement. even though everybody knows that police officers are constantly looking for violations of the traffic law. But the Highway Safety Office did huge initiatives to make the public aware. Okay, for example, during the 4th of July holiday weekend, law enforcement is going to be out really looking for people that are driving under the influence, making them aware, hoping that as a result, those numbers would reduce. There would be less people likely to go out on the roadway after they've been drinking and drive their vehicle. So we do the same thing at Blue Line Solutions. We have a huge public information and education component of this. We'll help you draft press releases so you can release them to the local media to let them know this is why we're doing this, because the faster you travel in a vehicle, the more likely you are to be involved in a crash. And the faster that you go, the more injuries and serious injuries or fatal injuries that you can cause when you're involved in a crash, which is obvious. You know, that, like I said, I'm a crash reconstructionist, so if you've ever seen crash tests, they don't do crash tests at 60 miles an hour because they know what's going to happen. They do crash tests at 35 or 45 miles an hour to see how much damage and how well the occupants are protected during that crash with all the safety measures that are in it. So we'll help you do social media blasts, local press releases. If you guys have water services or trash services through the city, we'll make flyers where you can send those out to all your residents in the mail to let them know this is coming, this is why, this is when, this is where. Completely transparent, because we want people to know that this is coming and this is why. We would be very happy to put up 2 cameras in your school zone and within a month, no one come through there speeding anymore. But I think the chief can attest that that's probably not ever going to happen. But that's our goal, is voluntary compliance. That's always the goal of traffic enforcement, whether you're making a traffic stop and issuing someone a citation or recording their vehicle information as they come through a school zone and sending it to them through the mail. Is to get them to voluntarily comply with the speed limit. Whether you're from Tallulah Falls or whether you're from another state and you're traveling to Tallulah Falls, as far as I know, every state in the United States of America posts the speed limit signs on the side of the road to make you aware of what the speed limit is. We just want people to comply with that.
I think a way to streamline part of this is if you can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
If you decide as an initial matter whether speeding in that area is a problem, if it is and you're looking to do something about it, the Blue Line solution system there's a lot of checks and balances and steps along the way. But the key thing, I think, if I've read the statute correctly, is that it is a civil fine of like $75. It doesn't count toward points on your driver's license or increases in your insurance rates, which would be common if we just posted an officer out there to write speed tickets. So, I mean, look, anytime anybody gets a ticket, they're going to be mad at the jurisdiction issuing the ticket. But, you know, this is not quite the same type of ticket. At least that's my understanding. And then the other thing is that, you know, it goes through your municipal court. So if there is, you know, there's an education component, there's also an opportunity for somebody to be heard on it. This system probably has some advantages to something else we might do if you all think this is a problem. Now, if you don't think this is a problem, then, you know, you have to make a decision from there. But that's just sort of my 2 cents in trying to guide the conversation here. Is it's not really an all or nothing approach. It's more of a, do we need to do something? And if so, is it this or is it an officer? And that'll be for y'all to decide.
The way I see it, at least if an officer was to issue you a citation on the side of the road, you have somewhat of an opportunity to voice your objection, or at least the officer has an opportunity to present you with a warning, or maybe just a scolding for speeding and ask you to slow down, which does a whole lot, a lot of cases, not all, but a lot. And in this case, if I understand the program right, you get your ticket in the mailbox. It may be there when you get home, and you read it and mail in the check. And
If I'm not mistaken, though, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong about something. Um, Hypothetically, let's say somebody comes through there and, they're going to, let's say, Reagan County High School. Their child was just in an accident. If they basically, I'm sure there's a number to call or whatever on this. They, in effect, call you or whomever. I mean, you can still do something with regards to that ticket. Am I correct? Okay. The other question that I would ask along with this is capturing by license plate. Is that correct? So let's say I let my 21-year-old son take my car, truck, or whatever. It's in my name. Okay. He's not thinking rationally or whatever, and he comes through there 15 miles. But anyway, so I get a ticket in the mail. I call you up and go, hey, I was working that day or whatever. Again, kind of the same thing. I mean, now obviously if I do that every week or something like that, there's a problem or something like that. But there's still an appeal process in place here. Am I correct?
I have a comment I'd like to make. Am I on? Hello? Am I on? I have concerns, and that does mitigate it, what he was saying, and I know that Tanya will be reviewing the tickets as they come in, but I particularly am really concerned that we're removing the human aspect, the human interaction aspect of of this transaction, basically, and the fact that the ability to apply immediate common sense to the circumstance is removed. And then you have to count on somebody being able to come back, reach somebody, go through more and more steps to get to it, to do this. And I do share Larry's concerns about the fact that it's certainly not going to help our reputation at all. But more than that, I really am concerned about removing the human interaction aspect of it. And I think that just having that step of removal will be a negative to it. That's my particular opinion about the system.
And I'd like to echo exactly what Deb just said, that part of it is eliminated. And one thing comes to mind as far as Joey says that this was generated by license plates. Now, let me give you an example. If somebody else borrows your car and gets out and generates a speeding ticket through the mail with it, and say that happens more than one time or several times or even one time, and then all of a sudden the car owner's insurance goes up because they've gotten a speeding ticket on the thing, and so that's something else for them to have to deal with. So I just see it creating a lot of problems unnecessarily to have to be dealt with. And you never know who's coming through. I agree to that, but you don't know whether this is somebody from halfway around the world or from somebody from your neighborhood. And so that would have a big effect on whether it would even be economically feasible for them to come back and argue the ticket, which they have a right to do. So that's another concern I would have. Everybody, I feel like, has that opportunity to at least plead their case. But if I had to travel a very far distance to do that, it wouldn't be economical to even that. That takes a a lot of the human element out of it, I think, that Deb addressed.
Okay, let's let
Basically,
Tanya.
if they're from a ways off, they need to, not be mean, but to learn to read the speed signs. They're there for a purpose, and we're out there for a purpose. And I understand people want to talk to an officer, but I'm the only one that you have out there at a time. I'm one person. I can only pull over so many cars, plus do my office work and everything else. Plus, in the day and time that we're in right now, a lot of police officers really don't want to make as many interactions because we're being shot in the head just because we're trying to speak to somebody. I had 3 cars the other day. I pulled over at 104 miles an hour coming through the school zone. They had no reason at all. They just wanted to speed. Being known as a speed trap or being known as where people get killed is 2 different things to be known as. Unfortunately, I pulled quite a few people out of cars that have been crushed because of speeds. Basically, what we're trying to do is to educate people to slow down. We're not trying to make this place not be where people want to come visit, but we want to make it safe for the kids that are already here and the citizens that are here. And again, one person.
If I can add to that as well, just looking at the speed study that we did, if you all look at just the morning time from 7:15 to 8:15 in the morning, and my primary responsibility as a law enforcement officer being in the traffic unit was to slow people down, and I concentrated on school zones. So me as one person, I can go out in the hour that the school zone lights are flashing, and I can stop on average 1 car every 10 minutes, right? I see that they're speeding, check their speed with the speed detection device, make a traffic stop, get their license, write them a citation, release them, go back, set up in the school zone again. If you look at the numbers between 7:15 and 8:15 in the morning, the week that we did the study, on Wednesday, there were 91 people that came through the school zone doing at least 10 miles an hour over the speed limit. So 11 or over, 91 people. The chief's one person. So she might have stopped 6 of them. So that's kind of the point of this. And, you know, like the mayor said, the fine is reduced. There's no points. There's no way that it affects your insurance at all because this is a civil violation, so that's not a concern. But there is no way that even in the traffic unit I was in, we had 6 guys. We couldn't make a dent in 91 people in an hour coming through a school zone speeding. But this system does, and it kind of makes it fair for everybody because nobody comes through there and gets off scot-free because an officer's already got somebody stopped. But there's absolutely total discretion on the chief's part, or if she ends up hiring additional officers, whoever screens these citations. I totally understand, and I understand your argument about the human factor. I never let somebody argue with me on the side of the road about a citation. That was for the judge to do, not me. I witnessed what I witnessed and issue a citation if I felt like a citation needed to be issued. But like you said, if somebody's rushing to another place because their child's been injured or they've already got their child in the car, they're rushing to the hospital, we understand that. I'm sure the chief understands that. So if somebody explains that to the chief, hey, I came through here, yes, I was doing 15 miles an hour over the speed limit even, but here's the bill from the hospital. I was taking my child to the emergency room because he broke his leg, whatever. The chief has a heart, and it's completely up to her if she wants to change that to a warning. We don't care as a company. It's about slowing people down, and it's not about being a robot and just sending a ticket out. So there's total discretion on her end as well.
Basically, it's boiled down to what's your life worth? Really, a ticket or making sure your kids get home and you get home safely? It's not trying to tear down anything. It's trying to save people's lives. That's the whole reason that we are out here doing what we do. And again, we want to go home safely too.
And if I'm
So
not
standing on the side of the road and writing tickets, we put our lives at risk for it also.
And if I'm not mistaken, these come with some electronic signs
They
that warn
do.
people, right?
It's posted. They're going to know they're there. It's going to flash. It's going to let them know, hey, this is what's ahead. So please slow down.
And that's something that's not required by Georgia law. It's just something we do as a company to add one more layer of warning. You know, as you come into the school zone, the first thing you see that's required by Georgia law is school zone photo enforced. So you know as you're coming into the school zone, this is a photo enforced school zone. And then we will give the city on each end a radar speed display that I'm sure all of you have seen. If the speed limit is 25 and you're doing 35, it will flash at you to let you know, hey, you're speeding. That's a second layer that's not required by law, but we do it as a company because it's about voluntary compliance. It's about getting people to slow down and, like the chief said, saving lives. Then you come past the flashing school zone lights that says, hey, this is a school zone. It's 45 miles an hour. Need to slow down. So you've in essence gotten 3 warnings before you pass that camera and it takes a photo of your car. So you almost have to try to get a speeding ticket in one of these school zones.
Cam, can I ask a quick question about those signs?
Absolutely.
Can they be set where if someone is exceeding the speed limit by a certain amount, it just turns off so we don't have people trying to race the signs?
Absolutely, because that's very important. You don't want someone trying to set a high score on it. So we can blank it out at, say, 60 miles an hour, whatever you want to set. Because that is an issue and always has been.
See, we did that with a sign out front. We've already discussed it. It's going to cut off, so don't do that. Plus,
And
it's
if
still
you
gonna
want,
cut
you know,
off.
we can turn it off at 10 o'clock at night so it's not flashing, disturbing someone. So it's totally up to you and totally programmable.
The important thing I see is that we don't have the ability to have a police officer in the school zone when it's flashing. I grew up, every time I go to the school zone, I slow down. I do the speed limit. Usually a police officer there in the zone. We don't have the ability to do that.
Not even if we hired a
This
second
is
officer on.
Ability to do that, slow something down. The first time that there's an accident because, you know, someone gets T-boned by crossing over while someone is speeding, we've discussed that, sat here in this meeting, discussed the situation. We're all gonna be regretting it. It's
I
that
know,
simple.
I know of at least 2 accidents we've had in that intersection.
I don't really care about being a speed traffic. You're speeding during a school zone time frame. I grew up this way. I'm sure most of the people listening grew up this way. You slow down and do the speed limit. If you're not doing it, you deserve a ticket.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Especially with that many signs telling you.
Yeah, I don't really care. Speed traffic.
Your life and your children's life takes one. In my first week here as chief, I had a wreck in the school zone. Just want people to be safe. That's all it boils down to. We're not trying to make money. We're not trying to do that. We're wanting people to go home.
It would be
And
different if you
enjoy
ran
their
it
life.
all day, weekends, and just racked it up. I get it.
Yeah.
If you can set the time zones, it's during the school
It's
zone,
during
you
school.
should be doing the speed limit.
That's
See
it.
no issue with this.
Just during school.
Say we get an accident, it's when we're gonna have an issue with this.
Okay, Deb, did you have any more?
No, I'm good.
Okay. I'm going to see if anyone in our meeting in the room, any of the public has anything they would like to say at this time before we take a motion.
Hi, this is Terry Dog. That our reputation is very important, but of a child or a life, whether it's an accident, injury, or death. And secondly, there's a term on this, I'm sure. So if this is not favorable to our town and its citizens, then that's something the council can continue to review.
I just like to say, since we're focusing here on safety issues primarily, right there in that same school zone or just south of the school zone, depending on how you measure it, the median in the middle of the road there, and I know all the locals are aware of it, but the median in the middle of the highway was not designed and made wide enough. So you can come across that median area, and if you're not able to clear both lanes and continue on and have to stop in the middle, in the median, the cut through, your vehicle is sticking out on both ends, and for something to spend your money on to make a highway safer, that right there certainly needs some attention. That's a bad situation there.
But we're not spending money, and actually, if you're slowing down in the school zone for this, you're gonna be able to stop a whole lot quicker if somebody's doing that. If you're actually driving the speed limit, you can get stopped a whole lot faster.
Unfortunately, we can't put money into the state highway.
Yeah, that's nothing that I can do.
I'm just
Yeah.
pointing out, as all of the locals know.
Oh, yeah.
that-
Oh,
that's
you're
a-
absolutely right.
That's a spot that needs to be taken care of, whoever takes care of it.
You're right.
Yeah, I wish they would come in and take care of that. It is a bad spot.
All right,
And
since
I
we,
don't know, now, I'm sure Tanya knows, every accident that has happened up there. But in all honesty, I only heard of one accident that was brought to my attention. That was before there was any signage up there for the school zone at all. There was absolutely none. And so primarily that accident is what generated the, on signage that's up there now. And I'm assuming that took care of a lot of the problem, but she might want to address that because I'm sure there's things out there that may have happened that I don't know anything about. But that school signage that's in place now, seemed to have taken care of any problems that were brought to my attention.
They did a study in February, right?
They did.
It indicated, I didn't see the study in this pamphlet.
It's not in
This
there.
is something I would have liked to have seen. It indicated several,
They did. I'll
Right.
look it up real quick.
this
and
is,
get your
this is
thoughts.
going to be a multi-step process for us. Because what we'll need to do now is first make a decision whether we want to pursue it. If we decide we want to pursue it, then we need to allow our attorney to review the contract and then come back to us for approval to sign and commit ourselves to the project. So there'll be a little bit more time to look at some more stuff before we sign a contract with them and seal the deal. So sounds like we've had enough discussion. I would like to see if we can get a motion to proceed with pursuing with Blue Line to get the school zone cameras installed. Is that something the council would like to do? Okay, move forward.
Qualifier there. That's early as far as putting in place to basically govern this, i.e.
Mhm.
the chief, and if for some reason you were to leave or at the end, or, whatever,
Okay,
that it would come back before the council to name and approve whoever would do that going forward, or if she goes on vacation and somebody that, just doesn't automatically fall to somebody coming in, that basically we have the approval for doing that.
we reapprove it.
Yeah, beyond that, and it's just running, it's not running on weekends or anything like that.
Or through the summer.
I like to get a copy of the study.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
I'll second based on that.
Okay, now this is just to move,
Right.
to move forward, keep looking at it, and let our attorney, and the next motion will be to let our attorney review the contract and maybe add stuff in like you're talking about. So, all right, so we have a first motion by Craig, second by Joey. And I don't know that we need any more discussion on it, so we'll take a vote. All in favor? Craig and Joey and Deb. So those opposed? Okay, so we have one opposed. Larry is opposed. So the motion carries. We'll continue on looking at it, and let's go ahead and have a second to allow the attorney, or a motion to allow the attorney to go ahead and review that contract. And then, okay, Joey makes that motion. Craig seconds. Warren, did you pick up on what Joey was wanting to see if we could kind of talk about in that contract?
I think what he was saying is that if, that basically council wants to retain the authority to nominate or appoint whoever the person reviewing the tickets is going to be. And so on the front end, you would appoint Chief Elrod. In the event that she was not there, we'd have to either make another appointment or we'd have to on the front end figure out who we were going to nominate as a secondary backup. You know, with regard to Blue Line's contract, I don't think that's necessarily something that needs to go in the contract with them. It would be just a policy or a resolution that the council could adopt as instruction to its own law enforcement department.
Okay, so is that, oh, all right, is there, since there's probably no more discussion about that, we'll go ahead and, those in favor of allowing, sorry, of having Warren review that contract and then bring that back to us next month for approval? 3 in favor, that would be Craig, Joey, and Deb voted in favor. Those opposed? All right, Larry is opposed. So the motion passes, and we'll, Warren, if you can get back with us, work with us during the month, but then have something ready for us to look at and either approve or deny next month.
Yeah, that'll be fine. And Cam, are you the point of contact on this if there's questions or tweaks or whatever?
Yes, sir, absolutely. Just send me any suggestions you've got, and we'll run it by our lawyer, and we'll work it out with you. We want it to be amenable to both parties.
Okay.
All right, we're done with that. Cam, we appreciate your attending and helping us out, helping us through this, and we look forward to seeing how this is going to work out and just see where this takes us.
Absolutely. Any other questions you have, just let me know.
All right, thank you. Okay, let's move on to our charter amendment review. You all should have gotten a copy of that a couple of days ago. Hopefully you've been able to read through it. It seems to hit all of our marks that we were looking for. There were some things in the original that we sent off that ended up not needing change, and so we removed those from the amendment so we could reduce down how much paper we're having to read through. So on that note, I would like to get a motion to approve this charter amendment to let me rephrase that. It's a motion to allow legislative council to go ahead and move forward with this amendment as presented. Okay, Craig makes the motion. Any second?
Just one thing as far as discussion goes, I was going to ask Warren, had you reviewed this this amendment to our charter, and are you comfortable with it, Warren?
Yes. We actually, legislative council, the lawyer who's drafting it, before he was with legislative council, was a lawyer that I knew and had cases with and against. And I guess he's taken a job with legislative council. So he and I know each other before we got into this. He has been a tremendous asset and a big help. But in drafting this, we have taken what I originally had prepared and submitted, to the local delegation to carry. We have gone through some significant revisions. This is probably the third or fourth draft of this, and I mean, this has got my full recommendation on it. Just to give you an example, we've taken out some things that we originally had in there that, upon kind of reading and reflecting, we realized really didn't need to be changed. So we've kind of gotten it down to brass tacks. I think it covers all of the main key points that you all were concerned about. And throughout that process, I mean, it's the way it would work is he'd make a draft, I'd get it, I'd send it to Linda and Mike, and then I'd tweak it and I'd send it back to them. I mean, so it's been a multi-level and in-depth discussion. There haven't been a lot of changes to the substance of what's still in it, but to answer your question, Larry, I mean, this wasn't something we sent off and they sent back and I've read it. It's something that we sent off, they sent back, and we sent back several more times back and forth, and this is the final product of it.
I just want to make sure you're comfortable with it.
Based on the direction y'all told me you wanted to go with it when we did the one back in February, I think this accomplishes that.
So we have a motion on the floor. If I can get a second from someone. Okay, Deb's going to second that, so we can continue the discussion. I believe Keith Nelms is wanting to have a say on something. Keith, are you there? Okay, we're not.
Keith, we can't hear you.
Can you not hear me?
Keith, you got your microphone on mute.
I'm showing him not muted for some reason.
It showed as muted.
He's gonna write.
There we go. Okay, Keith. No, we lost him again. Unmuted here. Never mind. Okay. I may have to get Keith on the phone when it comes to our DDA appointment, or we can let Joey speak for the DDA. So, yeah, I do want to thank Warren because he worked really hard. There's a lot of back and forth making sure that this. Oh, okay, Keith, go ahead. You have to hold him up to the microphone.
I didn't have much time to look at this, and it is tied in with, of course, the rest of the charter, which I'm not seeing. But one, I wanted to make sure for the DDA, this allows Joey to be on the DDA because you will vote to make sure that he's allowed. In looking at this, things that struck me is I don't see, it says something about compensation for boards, commissions, and authorities. Does this mean that P&Z and DDA could be paid for their volunteer work? Is that leaving the door open for that?
Let's see how I can answer that.
Page 4, lines 99, line
Yeah,
99.
yeah. I think it would allow.
Does Warren need to answer that?
Yeah, Warren can definitely answer that. I don't think that this wouldn't prevent anyone except a council member from serving on a board and getting paid. Some boards are paid. Okay, who's back on? Okay. So Warren, were you able to pick up on what he was asking about boards being paid?
Yeah. So the 99 through 100, subparagraph C of section 310 says that the town council could pass an ordinance that would allow the board to be paid. It doesn't require it, but you could. And his first question was he wanted to make sure that we had changed it to say that you could hold another office. So in other words, can a council member be on the DDA? And Keith, you'll get a kick out of this. Legislative Council took the same position as Dan McCray, which was that the general state law for DDAs actually superseded the charter, which was a specific local law by the General Assembly. And I pled my case, and he said, well, you have a point, but I think it goes the way Dan said it. So I'm in the minority, but what I told him was, well, be that as it may, put it in there for me anyway. So what it now says in section 2.14 is, except as authorized or permitted by general state law, neither the mayor nor any council member shall hold any other town employment or town office, including membership on an authority, board, or commission. But since general state law authorizes it to be on the DDA, you're good to go. And that's assuming that you weren't good to go before. You know, and then also if there's ever another board or commission that's created and it has a statute that governs it, it will cover that too.
I do not see any regulation that prevents family members from being on boards, commissions, and authorities. And I see no restriction on town hiring family members as staff.
It's actually going to be in section.
Covered somewhere.
Yeah, it's covered somewhere else, Keith. Go ahead, Warren.
It's covered in section 2.11, and it is lines 29 through 33.
And because it was already being covered in the section 211, we took it out where there was a almost verbatim repeat in 311, and we just took that out because we didn't need it in there twice.
And that was part of the revision as well, as adding back in there what the office meant.
Take you there that it's covered elsewhere. Okay, and so we do want to leave the door open for the town to have commissions and other things that are paid as a position.
Yeah, so the way that this is set up is basically unless you're authorized by the DDA statute or some other statute that's comparable, if you're an elected official, you can't hold another office. If you are related within the second degree of affinity or third degree of consanguinity to an elected official, you can't hold any other elected or appointed office either. But the carve out says that the majority of the unrelated council members can vote to allow the disqualified person to serve as an unpaid volunteer, filling a role on behalf of the town for no compensation or remuneration. So it leaves the door open for that.
Okay, that's fine. Warren, you would probably quickly note the town of White about 4 years ago and the type of mingling of relationships and financial things that led to arrests, etc. And it was much larger than the town of Tallulah Falls. And so I'm just concerned the town makes sure that the regulations and laws protect us from ourselves.
Yeah, sadly, I can tell you several other examples of that happening too. But I think that's what we try to do, is strike a balance where check and balance, if you will, where it excludes the council member or mayor that has the conflicting interest, and then it leaves it in the hands of the rest.
Okay, thank you, Keith. Do we have any other questions? All right, let's move on and get a vote. So all those in favor of allowing legislative council to move forward and present this to the legislature, all in favor? It is unanimous.
And before we go on, just so that nobody has any misunderstandings of what we think is going to happen here, the legislature is slated to begin its session, I think somewhere around June 14th or so. They've got 10 session days left. The only constitutional requirement for the legislature that they've got to finish is to pass a balanced budget. So it may be that they come in and they do that and they adjourn and go home, in which case this won't drop. But if they're going to take up other stuff, which everything that I'm kind of seeing and hearing suggests that they might, then there's the possibility for this to get dropped and to have some traction gained, but it's sort of up in the air, if you will. We're not positive that they're going to take it up this session. If they don't, it'll be ready for next session.
All right. So that being done, let's move on to our next item on the agenda. It will be document security. Linda, if you can kind of update us on what you found and what your suggestion is going to be.
Okay, we looked more into the Muni code, which is Muni Docs. They have a great program as far as doing minutes in any of your public documents that you would want searchable by the public to be incorporated on your website, that kind of thing. So they can do that. It's only for up to 25 gigabytes of data. It's only $350 a year. It does not solve our problem of like HR documents and sensitive documents. They don't do that. So those are just your public documents that that we can protect, like the minutes, and of course we already do the ordinances with them. But it would be a searchable that would be on the website, that would be next to basically the ordinances, so it would tie into that. So that's one option that was a lot less expensive than I anticipated based on how much it costs to do the codification. So, and it is something that we would keep up ourselves. So it's not something that we have to do once a year with them like we do the ordinances. We did get some feedback from our IT company. Used to be EDTS. They've changed now. It's Corsica Technologies. I talked to Johnny Walton. He said that based on the number of employees that we have, it may be our best solution to just put on the server a folder on the server, basically, that we could just put those items in that were sensitive. It wouldn't necessarily be anything that we would use for the public or use for any other purpose other than making sure that we had our documents somewhere other than just paper. So that would not cost us anything. And then the third best option was the e-file cabinet. This is kind of has all the bells and whistles. You can do your public records and you can do your sensitive records. It has retention schedules and all of the auditing. So it keeps track of every change that is made to any kind of sensitive document or anything. So you would know when it was last changed and who changed it. To get the bells and whistles, you would have to do the minimum 3 users at $55 a month per user. So that's $165 a month. We may not be able to do that quite yet. That may be something that, you know, we want to work towards. I don't know if we have the money right now to be able to go that direction, but that would definitely be a great way to work towards.
Is that e-file or e-file clerk?
This one is called eFile Cabinet.
You know who the parent company is?
This says Rubik's by eFile Cabinet.
Did you by chance look at OpenGov? They're cloud-based. Also put you in touch with document manager. Atlanta.
We talked to a few others. Tanya had a recommendation. That one was a little bit more expensive and a little bit tailored different than what we were looking for. They want to do a demo for us, but we haven't scheduled that yet. But it was on the low end, it was $1,650 a year. And it went up from there.
You
That
want
was,
on-premise or cloud?
we were looking at cloud-based. Preferably.
Cloud's gonna give us the best security and the best of both worlds.
That's OpenGov Secure Cloud. E-file, I think they're a blend.
They will do either one.
The company I know, I believe it's Agilus that still owns them. The package was called Clerk. And they will also document retention, and of course, secure it. But you also can do OCR. So, up there, take your flashing light.
Right. I think this one does that too. The Muni Docs, also as far as the minutes, like it does do the OCR, and it also puts some ADA tagging in it too. That was nice.
Yeah, the whole point of looking at doing something other than just putting documents on our server, although that's a great first step, and I think it's something we probably ought to do anyway, just go ahead and get those digitized and done, the sensitive ones. But the whole idea of the other is to have something that's searchable, so you're managing the documents, which I know you're well familiar with. I think you told me you set a bunch of them up, just so we can manage these documents. Because once we do this, if we have an open records request, we don't need our clerk sitting for 5 or 6 days. I knew it was going to ring. 5 or 6 days trying to find a document on the hard drive. We need to be able to do a search. So.
This guy that I know down there, that's all he does. OCR and doc. You'd be interested in talking. He owns his own company. Typically, he does like plants and large. He'll done enough work with him. He'll talk.
Okay. So I think we still need to have some more discussion and some more looking into this, but just so the council's aware, I don't think we need a motion to move to get our personnel records and everything else. Just go ahead and get those scanned and get them on our server in a secure folder that only Linda and Tanya would have access to, the police department files, anything she needed. So we can set that up and restrict access. And that way we don't have the situation that happened north of us where personnel records were taken. Well, sensitive documents, I don't know if personnel records were involved, but I know some sensitive documents were involved. And that's what got the conversation started. So, so that we'll keep working on that and bring back.
The only question is if you all, for the Muni Docs, to put the minutes on the website, is that something that you'd be interested in at the $365 a year, or do we want to try to do a whole different?
That limits it like 25 gigabytes. You're going to use that up earlier. not a lot, unless you reduce your scanned image every time you scan.
What, I didn't even look at the,
It's 0 to 25 gigabytes for 350.
oh no, we need
I
at least a
know.
terabyte.
So you're looking at, 100 gigabytes, you're looking at $1,200.
Yeah, no, we need a terabyte minimum. That needs to be our
Yeah.
minimum level.
So you'd be looking at Rubik's or e-file cabinet where they run perfect scenario would be in the 165 a month or a terabyte. It's really going to be about the cost. You can get what you want, I'm sure.
Right. Okay. And then, so,
And we can look at that when we're looking at the budget.
Yeah,
Get
we'll
into those
get into the
discussions too.
budget stuff. Yeah, so we'll bring that in with the budget if we think we can fit it in somewhere. If not, it's something to think about. But the biggest thing on our radar is securing our personnel records. So,
And some of these softwares, when you scan, when they do the OCR, they'll reduce that file size as well. That way you can store more data. Because if you just take a basic scanned image, picks up every little dot, pixel on that image, if that makes sense. Creates a large file, so. The OCRs, it will compact it and reduce the file size. If you see a product that has that reduction in file size, that's huge.
all right. So any more direction, anything? All right. We'll keep working on that. I think it's a good thing to keep pushing toward. So now we'll move on to our new business. And the first thing on our new business is a permit request from Larry Hamilton. And Warren, I need you to kind of step in here for a minute and explain how this needs to proceed.
So Larry, since you're the one requesting the sign permit, I think you've got to recuse. We went through this last year, both with you and with Mary Beth. So, I mean, not anything that we're kind of changing on that. The Open Meetings Act requires that we have a quorum physically present. We do, but Larry, if and when you recuse, then we go down to 2 physically present. So that gives rise to kind of a weird situation. But the position that I'm comfortable taking on that is that for purposes of establishing the quorum, we have that physically present. You've got 3 council members and a mayor. And if you recuse, we still have 3 council members present. So if we take action on it, you could still reach the 3 votes necessary for this to pass. So in other words, the way I view this is, we can continue to rock on and consider it. But that being said, I mean, Larry, you tell me how you're comfortable going about it. If you want to table this till next month, or if you want to proceed forward.
I'd just soon proceed forward. In this particular case, there's pictures with the application.
Larry, if I could though, just for purposes of the minutes and stuff, before you can present your case, I guess, to the council, we would need you to recuse.
Just for procedure.
Okay, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, so Linda, we'll just show that Larry's recusing himself
That's what I want to know.
from the vote, but he can still present his application. Okay, does that take care of us, Warren?
Yep.
All right. Floor is yours, Larry. Present your application.
Okay, I only want to say that all this involves here is I'm requesting, I'm putting back exactly the signs that have been on the building in the past for approximately 15 years. In fact, in this case, they're exactly the same signs, and they're being done professionally. It's one of my previous renters that's coming back in that location. Wants to put the sign back on the top of the building. And sign on each side of the wagon out front. We wouldn't be even going through this process, except my renters seem to be wanting to take the signage off of the building every time they leave, and those signs are part of that property, part of that building. Got over $1,200 invested in signs, and I can't convince the renters that they should leave them there. So I want to get this permit done once and for all. From here on out, the signs will be a part of the property and a part of the building. I'm not asking for an increase in the size of the sign, not even the design of the sign, just simply put back signs that have previously been on the building. Just to let everybody know, the building's been there for almost 70 years, and it's always had signage on it. I want to put back not only signage, but exactly the signage that was taken down.
Larry's done. We're waiting.
Larry's done? Wow. Sorry. Getting some last minute things taken care of. Okay, so let's have a motion to accept the sign application. Joey makes the motion, Craig seconds. Is there any further discussion from anybody? I don't see Deb raising her hand. Okay, so those in favor of accepting? Okay, we've got all three council members, two physically present, one remotely present, voting in favor. For the sake of possible legal ramifications, this kind of might create a deadlock. So in that event, I'm voting in favor as well to break a deadlock if a deadlock exists. Go ahead, Warren.
And you took the words right out of my mouth there. I figured I would discuss that on the back end instead of the front end, just so that I didn't thoroughly confuse everybody until the business at hand got done. But if you remember in the charter amendment, one of the things that we were originally going to change was it said that the mayor could vote in such situations as is necessary to break a tie or deadlock. And so we struck the word or deadlock because we didn't know what it was. Turns out that a deadlock would be a situation like we have here where we've got a quorum, but it's 3 council members. And although it all sailed through flawlessly tonight, for example, if something came up and 2 of the council members voted for and 1 voted against, then you have a situation where you fail to achieve a 3-vote necessary for the matter to pass. And in that situation, the mayor could vote to break the deadlock. Why that's important is coming into our stuff about special elections and replacements, you could in theory have a situation where if a council member resigned, you then had only 3 council members present, and you could have 1 holdout that voted no to every single thing, and you could never get anything done. So that's why the word deadlock was in there, and that's why we took that section out and left it alone, because legislative counsel's advice was, yeah, you kind of really want that. So what I had told Mike this morning was exactly what I said to y'all here, that I'm comfortable with y'all having a quorum that is physically present. Larry doesn't take any action, and then there's still 3 members. But if anybody ever comes back, Larry, one of those tenants says, we're taking our sign, you don't have a sign permit because you didn't have a valid vote. That's why Mike's voting to break the deadlock, if you will, to the extent there is one. So that was news to me, maybe news to y'all, and I will turn it back over to you.
All right. So that motion carries, and your permit will be in the mail, or you can pick it up. All right. All right. Next on our agenda is our DDA appointment. I don't believe we really have much to go on here. Joey, you can speak to this unless Keith has fixed his problem. or wants to speak. Yeah, and we have the report. So basically, what it is there's the member that would be resigning or stepping down has agreed to serve the position a second term. And so all we really need to do is, if unless someone has something else or someone else in mind, we just reappoint him to that seat. So that's the motion. All right, Craig makes the motion to reappoint. Joey seconds. All in favor? Unanimous. All right, easy. Okay, last thing on the agenda will be to set some dates for, we need at least one budget work session. We may need a few more depending on how that first one goes. And then we have to have a public hearing before we adopt the budget. So we need to set some dates for those. I believe, Warren, do we, or Linda, do we have to have 2 public hearings? The one has to be a week ahead before we adopt. Okay. Now, the adoption of our budget by our charter or ordinance, wherever it states it has to be done by July 31st. So we have some time to get it done, but it's easier if we can get it done closer to July 1st. So to get the final budget approved. So July 1st. So we'll be operating, we possibly will be operating without a budget for a short time. But anyway, so do you have any dates picked out to start working with?
Do we want to keep our regular? Now, just to throw another little loop in there, we're probably going to need a work session for the short-term vacation rental, assuming that P and Z sends it to us after their meeting. They may not be ready to, but if they do, we are currently scheduled to have our public hearing on the short-term vacation rental ordinance and the zoning map on July 9th. So we would theoretically want to have a work session to go over what P and Z was recommending, get Warren's input into that, and then let Warren draft it up as an ordinance to be prepared for the July. So we may, in other words, we may need a work session just for that, plus at least one for the budget.
Okay. We want to keep the 18th and dedicate it to the budget. Well, we won't know about the P and Z until after next Wednesday. So if we set the 18th up for a work session for the budget, then we can do the 25th or the 2nd, take care of the, more likely the 25th, or any other day. It doesn't have to be a Thursday necessarily. We can pick a Tuesday, Friday, if anyone wants to be here on a Friday evening. I didn't think so.
My birthday, so I'll be here then either.
Oh.
But I will.
Well, when is DDA's meeting? Is it the 7th? It would be the 16th, correct? Okay, so we could do something on the 17th. My schedule's pretty open, so I'm going to go with what you guys work out. I think the 18th for a budget workshop will work for everybody.
I'll be here still, but I should still be able to attend this way.
All right.
And what's the time on that?
6 o'clock work. Okay.
3 o'clock for me. Got it.
Wow. 3 o'clock. All right. Was about to speak.
And yeah, that's, Deb, I'm perfectly fine with you appearing by Zoom or whatever we're using. there is a provision in the Open Meetings Act. This kind of goes for everybody. You can attend up to 2 times a year. And, you know, I'm not counting the times that we were attending via WebEx conference during the emergency, because I think that's a little bit different, grayer area. Theoretically, we're still under a little bit of an emergency situation till I think June 13th or 14th, whenever the governor's order expires. But just for everybody, kind of in general, be aware if you have to attend one by phone because of training or because of whatever circumstance, you basically get 2.
All right.
Question.
Go ahead.
She could still attend, but maybe not have a vote. Would that be correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, that's right.
Not at a work session, correct? So do we need another date for, do we need,
For the short-term vacation? Do you have your calendars?
I'd say do the 20, let's go ahead and set the 25th if everybody's good with that. 6 o'clock also. In case we have to, we're gonna have to dig in on that. And does that need to be that's gonna be a workshop because we'll have a hearing later on that
Right, the hearing is scheduled for July 9th at our regular meeting.
at our regular meeting. Okay. Took a little while. All right.
If at all possible, if we could push that back, if you could push the short-term vacation rental back at all.
Give you more time.
Yeah.
Okay, so would July 2nd, anyone have a conflict on that? That won't be our next meeting because we,
Earlier.
confusing me.
We're gonna get P and Z's recommendation. We're gonna have a work session, and then Warren's gotta draft that into an ordinance.
Gotcha,
So he needs
gotcha.
more time.
Oh, okay. I'm open if we want to do one on the 11th. If they come back with something, do it the next night. You okay with that, Larry?
As far as I know, yeah. I
Okay.
don't know why. 11th.
On the 11th, that would be next Thursday. We'd get back together if the planning and zoning has something to look at. Okay.
Same time and place.
Yeah, I'd say 6. It's just, it's hard grained into my brain, 6 o'clock. So, all right. So we'll do that on the 11th if we need to. And then we'll set other budget. If we need other budget meetings, we'll set that at the 18th meeting. We'll kind of play those out by ear.
So is the workshop that we're looking at for short-term vacation rentals June 11th?
Correct.
Okay.
All right. Any other dates we need to? There. Our next meeting will be the 9th.
So we got
The 11th and the 18th. Of June. Our next council meeting will be the 9th. Work session, or not work session, a hearing before that. If planning and zoning has something for us to review.
All right, so that'll be July 9th.
July 9th, correct.
So one question. Are you going to try to meeting, in which case we'll have the hearing the 2nd or before we're gonna have another special call meeting during.
How far out do we have to have the notice of that public hearing? 1 week?
It has to be noticed. The budget hearing has to be a week before, and then you have to have at least a week before then to get it in the paper.
So if we made a decision on the 18th that we needed to do it on do anything on the 2nd, is there enough time to have our, I'm just thinking if we get together on the 18th and nothing has to happen and we can go to our public hearing. Okay. We could have the hearing on the 2nd. Be cutting it close, but we could. Okay. Let's see what happens on the 18th, and then if we have to, we'll get that out and push it.
Budget typically takes a little while, so I don't know if there's any possibility that y'all want to start earlier. But
Start
in
earlier
an
than-
hour.
I want to change the time, or you want to stay at 6? You want to move it forward some? I don't know what other people's schedules are like. And that'd be on the 18th. Yeah. I don't know, at 4 or 5? No, not quite that early.
I'm flexible.
Oh, you can't at all. We need to leave it at 6. 5:30. Okay. Let's leave it at 6 then. I think we'll be safer that way. Maybe we'll order some pizza if we have any money. Right. Okay, I think that gives us what we needed. And pull back up my agenda so I know what I'm looking for. All right, we're mayor's comments, and I'm not going to have any comments tonight. I'm going to open the floor to the public. If anyone that's left wants to weigh in.
Just one thing back
Oh.
up on the water and
On the water. Oh, yeah, go ahead. I think I know what you're going to ask.
I just see here, you should have environmental management's report and what in front of you there. And I see that they want to put a meter on the flow meter on the back flush line that goes to our sand pit, just so they can monitor the amount of water that we're using when we back flush. They've got 1-inch meter for $494.50 plus materials and time. So I don't know if we need to make a motion, but we may to allow them to move forward with that.
I seen that we'd already put it into
It may already be in the budget. Linda would know for that. I'm not sure, but
I don't know, but we saw that after we'd already published the agenda. And so we were going to put it on next month's agenda to approve, to discuss that.
well, our see on our agenda though, the water report is on here. Reports, water report, police report, fire report. So wouldn't we just be part of the water report? We just skipped over it, but it's on this agenda right here.
That was the consent agenda that we didn't approve. They made a request, but we didn't approve something in there. So it has to be, from what I understand, it has to be pulled out and isolated, either to discuss the water report or forward.
We didn't get the water report until today, so
it just,
I thought it would just be a regular water report. So I don't think there's any urgency to it,
Okay.
but I think we're gonna have some, quotes for doing the phase 1 work for the tank. So I think we can do both of those
do
at
all
our
that
next
at our
meeting.
next council meeting.
Okay.
So-
Yeah, no problem. I
But
just saw
yeah.
it in there and I thought it, planning to try to get it done.
I did notice the water loss was drastically lower by 65,000 gallons. So that's, because of float.
I would guess that's because the float switch is working again.
Right.
And I want to, since this has come up, I will make this comment. For the council and the public's knowledge, the fire department has not touched a hydrant in over 6 months. And the water department would hear from us if we had. So I just want to, it's still in there. It's not a big deal. So there's no water loss in that point of contact. I just wanted to be able to point that out.
However, we need to handle that so that at some point in time,
It'll, next council meeting, it's already, I told her first, as soon as I saw that, I said, let's
Yeah.
put it right on our agenda for next month.
yeah, because I honestly didn't see it until just now.
Right.
When I see it.
Yeah, so it will be on the agenda next month and among hopefully some other stuff to get that phase 1 project for the Hickory Nut water tank.
Just to give everybody a heads up on his report here, and I'm just looking at it. He's still trying to collect bids from the various companies and get proposals and get some things lined up to continue to move forward on the Hickory Nut Mountain tank. And also on thinking done on our big tank.
Right.
Pretty self-explanatory. You guys got it. You can
Okay, so do we have any public input out there?
Mike, can I get in a DDA question while Warren's still on the line?
Yeah, we can hear you. All right.
Yeah, I rebooted. It's a long story. So we have appointed Dustin. My understanding from what you said, Warren, is that Joey is okay to continue to serve on the DDA regardless of whether the charter goes forward. Is that what I understood you to mean?
Well, I guess that's not my opinion, but it is the opinion of two people who would know, if you will.
Okay.
And I have been known to be wrong before. So in light of where we are, which is basically you've got two unrelated lawyers who take one position. I tend to take another position, but we fixed it by charter amendment, presuming it goes through this year. It's a matter of risk and reward. What I would suggest is we leave it alone. And then just once we get this through, we'll just ratify whatever decisions y'all make between now and then.
Well, where I'm going with this is I have a nominating committee that needs to nominate and prepare officers beginning July 1. Joey may or may not be a problem. And then Christie being the secretary, but under the old charter, that wasn't the bright line that the thing with the council member was. We need to know who the council is, who's on the DDA before we can elect officers and nominate them in June. I'm guessing if the charter goes through, we need to have you guys vote on allowing Joey to be on the DDA, and if there's any need to do so with Christie. So I'm not sure what's going to happen there, but I may need to get you guys to recommend or pass or appoint people sometime the next month or so.
Yeah, and I Joey, I don't want you to feel like I'm picking on you here. We had council members on there before, and what it is the DDA statute has a specific provision that says up to one elected official can serve on the DDA. Our charter, until this amendment goes through, prohibits that. I take the position that the charter is specific because the legislature made it specific to Tallulah Falls, whereas the DDA statute is general. And usually the specific controls over the general. So that's why I'm saying that the permission granted in DDA statutes, not that permission was removed by the charter. But at least what bond counsel has taken the position and what legislative counsel has taken the position is that in this case, general law would trump the charter. And in talking with legislative counsel some more, he's like, yeah, I mean, I see some points, and that just probably would be something you'd have to fight about if and when it ever came up. And the only way it would come up is if y'all are going to do something big like buy or sell property or issue bonds, in which someone may challenge or do something, related to that. So in terms of the risk and reward, unless y'all are going to make some just absolute earth-shattering decisions that you think are going to get you sued over it, my recommendation would be to just sort of keep things as is. Let's hope we get this charter amendment through, and that'll remove all doubt.
Okay, we will see how things play out. You said June 15th is the start. They've got 10 days.
Yeah, 10 session days. So that's not quite 10 days, even 10 working days, because they will go into session and meet for a couple days, take a couple days off and do committees and stuff. But 10 session days, roughly.
Okay, we're going to assume the membership stays the same until somebody tells us otherwise.
I think that's fair.
Thank you.
All right, any more public input? All right, looks like we're good. So I need a motion to adjourn. Greg makes that motion. Joey seconds. All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you very much.